Thank you for attending today's lecture on organization performance management. Just like it is important for employees to be able to track and monitor their own performance, organizations as a whole need to think about how they track and monitor their performance as well. With organizations today being asked to do more and more with less and less resources, it is important that they have methodologies in place to provide continuous improvement to processes and procedures. As the pace of innovation and changes in industry are affecting a wide variety of markets, organizations need to think about how they will continue to improve to remain competitive. As Jack Welch said, an organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action rapidly is the ultimate competitive advantage. Through this lecture, we'll be going through some of those methodologies which are used today in many businesses, providing an overview of those, talking through criticisms and questions that come up with those, and explain how you can apply those methodologies within your organizations and use these lessons learned to overcome failures that other organizations have seen. In today's lecture, we'll be talking through 4 different methodologies which are widely used in a number of industries today. Those methodologies are Total Quality Management, Lean, Six Sigma, and Lean Six Sigma. Total Quality Management is a methodology that has been around for several years. It focuses on long-term success through customer satisfaction. It requires participation from all parts of an organization with a focus on improving processes, products, and services, and the culture of an organization as a whole. The methodology itself has 8 different principles. The first is customer focused. This means that the focus of process improvements should be used to improve and meet customer requirements. The second principle is total employee involvement. TQM requires participation from all parts of the organization, not just individual teams and departments. The third principle is process-centered. This means that processes and controls are what should be focused on from an improvement perspective. The fourth principle is integrated system. This means that the process of TQM needs to not be focused on just an individual part of the organization, but an organization on a whole. So several different departments looking cross-functionally to provide improvements. The fifth principle is strategic and systematic approach. This means there's a strategic and systematic approach to how process improvement works within the organization. 6 is continual improvement. This means that improvements aren't just made individually or randomly, but it's a continuous process that's focused on. As processes are improved, they're reevaluated, and improvements are identified and continue to happen. The 7 is fact-based decision making. This means that the organization has the data to make informed decisions that are fact-based, not subjective decisions based on bad information. And finally, 8, communications. Communication of TQM and process improvement needs to take place throughout the organization on a continual basis so that all employees at every different level are engaged and involved in the process, and it maintains momentum. Another methodology used by many organizations is Lean. Lean is an operating philosophy that came from Toyota. It focuses on reducing waste in processes and looks to shorten the time that elapses between a customer's order being created and the shipment of that product or the fulfillment or provisioning of that service. There are several tools and techniques that are used with Lean. Some examples include 5S, which is a process that is used to improve the orderliness, cleanliness, and efficiency of operations, as well as providing orderly and standardized controls within operations. Visual controls are another tool that are used. These provide visual insight to organizations to the statuses of processes. This could include flow charts, Gantt charts, visual graphs on overall performance. Cellular design is another tool that's used many times in Lean. This includes making sure the layout of a facility is optimized for the operations and manufacturing process. Finally, quick changeover is another example. This is where the same machinery is used, but with interchangeable parts that can be quickly modified to enable an organization to run small batches of products on the same machinery with very limited downtime. With Lean, there are several implementation steps that need to be gone through. The 5 basic steps are value stream mapping. This is where specific actions to bring a product from being initially an idea to a finished good are defined by the organization. Lean baseline assessment. This is where assessment processes such as interviews, flowcharts, processes, and observations are used to generate a current state report for an organization, how processes work today. Critical mass training is another requirement. This is where critical mass is reached within the employee base on the Lean process to really understand how this process is going to impact the organization. Kaizen teams are then also set up. These teams are developed and put together to reduce and eliminate bottlenecks that might be created in processes or in the operations of an organization. Finally, value stream planning is the final step. This is where action plans and Gantt charts that detail the work that will be done to improve the value stream over an entire year are created. This information is shared within the organization. As an organization develops these Lean processes, they see those improvements have an impact overall on the organizational performance. Six Sigma is another methodology that's widely used by many organizations. Six Sigma, rather than focusing on waste like Lean methodology, looks to reduce variation. So within this, it's looking to find the critical X's or inputs into the equation that are creating unwanted Y's or outputs within operations. Quality performance by Six Sigma is considered 3.4 defects per 1 million opportunities. The Six Sigma process is a 5-step process called the MBAC process. This includes define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. First, starting with define, this means defining client requirements, determining what clients want, what the ideal output is. From there, you move on to the measurement process. This is actually measuring the different processes that go into creating the output. After those have been defined and the measurements are in place, organizations can then move on to analyzing that information. So based on these measurements and metrics, being able to analyze the data that's coming in and see where areas of problems are within processes and procedures. From there, it moves on to the improvement process. So this is where once this data is uncovered where the errors are occurring, how you take action and improve on those processes. And then finally, control. Putting in processes and procedures that actually prevent future defects from occurring. And this whole process is followed on a continual basis. And so organizations that follow this Six Sigma methodology are constantly going through this cycle and this MBAC process to define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Finally, Lean Six Sigma. This process is really something that came about as organizations tried to deploy both Lean methodology and Six Sigma. Many organizations found that both of these methodologies conflicted with one another in their ideology as well as within resources that they were requiring. And so organizations that both tried to apply Lean and Six Sigma in two different fashions often ran into issues. Because of that, organizations look to adopt more of a hybrid approach, where Lean is a methodology that looks to provide quick improvements and identify quick wins within process improvements and controls. Six Sigma looks as a more long-term approach with projects that look over the longer term for improvements and typically have longer projects. So you're looking at 6 to 8 month projects. So organizations have developed hybrid methodologies, which they've called Lean Six Sigma, which really utilize the best of both worlds within Lean and Six Sigma. Now, with all of these methodologies, there are questions and criticisms that have occurred. So recently, many organizations that have adopted this Six Sigma or other methodologies for organization performance management have struggled. Many organizations that were widely using these processes before, many Japanese electronic manufacturers, automobile manufacturers that were using these methodologies have really run into trouble over recent years. So from an electronics manufacturing perspective in Japan, where they're utilizing a lot of these organization performance management services, they've actually lost quite a bit of money to competitors out there from China and Korea that are able to provide cheaper and higher quality products and services. In fact, as recently as 2012, that industry in Japan has lost $21 million. In addition, there's been issues with auto manufacturers in Japan, so recalls for manufacturers such as Toyota, Honda, where issues have occurred. And so even though they have these processes in place, they're still being beaten by countries and organizations that aren't using some of these methodologies. There's also speculation on the performance for these methodologies and stifling innovation. So organizations such as Motorola and General Electric have struggled within the industry, but have even seen that some of these continuous improvement processes actually stifle innovation because of such a strong focus on quality management and process controls and improvement. So some of the criticism has been that, many times this is actually preventing innovation in a lot of industries. In addition to that, because of poor follow through and poor utilization of some of these organization performance management, nearly 60% of all Six Sigma or other organization performance management processes have actually failed to meet their objectives. And so from that perspective, there has been a lot of criticism in the industry of these more recently, and sort of a thinking that many of these processes related really well for manufacturing, but as we've gone to more of a technology-based industries out there, is that we've seen these processes in organization performance management haven't been as effective as innovation and change have occurred. So as we've talked about these criticisms and questions that come up about organization performance management, organizations have to think about what they do to prevent failure and ensure success when applying these different methodologies. So one thing we've learned is that just because there have been issues that have arisen and questions that have come out about the effectiveness, that it does not mean that they should be abandoned completely. They still have a place and provide a lot of value in organizations when applied correctly. So some of the things to think about is consider modifications of the process. So customizing the process. So within your organization, these different methodologies may work better in certain areas than other. So think about how and where you're applying methodologies for organization performance management, whether that's Six Sigma, Lean, total quality management. In addition, as you identify processes that are causing problems, determine if that needs to be improved, eliminated, or disrupted. So there might be instances where you actually just need to change a process or completely rethink about how you're doing things in order to effectively improve the overall performance of the organization. Finally, assess the impact on the culture. So again, this goes back to some of the criticisms around innovation that happen and stifling innovation by applying some of these methodologies. So understand your organization. If you're more of a technology-based company and some of these processes and procedures have more relevancy related to manufacturing, you might want to consider how you're applying that and whether certain methodologies are the right fit for your organization. Some of the lessons learned that have been learned by organizations that have succeeded and also failed with some of these methodologies. Extend the knowledge beyond experts. So don't just have your Six Sigma black belt be the gatekeeper of all knowledge around how processes work within this system. Make sure that you have a number of people within your organization that are aware of these processes, can effectively communicate it, and are participating in all of these projects that occur around these different organization performance management methodologies. Tie the performance of employees, or tie these methodologies and projects that are worked on within these methodologies to employee performance. So it's always effective if employees know that what they're working on and developing towards is not just something that was dictated to, but actually ties to their overall performance and review process. In addition, keep teams small and projects short. So keep teams between 6 to 9 people and keep projects short, between 6 to 8 weeks. This ensures that your organization is keeping up momentum with these and seeing improvement while not burning out employees and seeing really long projects that never actually get put in place. And then finally, make sure that executives are participating and not just supporting this process. So it's one thing to say you're supporting this process, but from an executive management leadership level, you should really be participating and understanding this process to provide employees insight that you know how this process works and you're dedicated towards it. And then also making sure that there's motivation for them to participate as well. And then finally, choose a methodology that's right for your organization. So there's not a one-size-fits-all approach with this. As we talked about, there's several different methodologies. We've mentioned a few today. There's even ones that we talked about which are hybrid methodologies, but really find the methodology that's right for your organization that works best for you. So in summary, today we talked about organization performance management. We discussed 4 common methodologies which are used by many organizations today to provide continuous improvement. Those included Total Quality Management, Lean, Six Sigma, and Lean Six Sigma. We discussed at a high level how these different methodologies worked, which included the tools and techniques, processes, and implementation methods for these. In addition, we talked through some of the common criticisms and questions that are arising lately around organization performance management and the effectiveness of these different methodologies. We talked through ways to prevent failure of these methodologies, as well as ways to ensure success when applying them within your organization, and things to consider when applying them to your organization, like whether it's a good fit or not. So hopefully this lecture has been insightful and informative for you, and has provided you with information where you can start to think about how you might apply some of these methodologies to see improvement within your own organization. Thank you.